Hello and welcome to Skills and Automation. My name is Ash and today we are going to do a deep dive into the range.find method, especially when it comes to performing lookups. Now, there are many ways to do a lookup in VBA. We could use the Excel Vlookup function through VBA, or we could even use the key item pairs from a dictionary. However, the find function is, in my opinion at least, the most versatile. So here's what we're going to look at today. First, we will do a brief overview of the find method. Then we'll perform a simple VLOOKUP style operation for a single value and then do the same operation but this time in a loop. And then we'll get to the good stuff. I have prepared an example where we'll get to test multiple creative uses of the find method in the context of a real life scenario. First up, let's look at the syntax. The find function here is given as a method of the range object, but you can use it with other objects as well, such as cells and columns. We'll look at each of them in this video. And we have a whole heap of parameters that you can pass through the find function. This basically helps us to customize what we want to find. The minimum required information that we need to give to the find function is the what parameter. That is, specify what we want to find. Everything else is optional. We'll address the other parameters given here when we get to it in our code building exercises. And lastly, the output of the find function is a range object. So if we are looking for a particular value in a worksheet, the find function will give us the first cell, or rather the first cell range object where that value was found. And then we can do a range.select to grab the matching value, or a range.offset.select to grab the value next to it, which is basically a lookup. But more on that later. For now, let's look at a few basic examples so that we can understand how to construct the code for a search operation and return a result. This is the dataset that we'll look at later on in our practical example section. For now though, let's look at column C. It has multiple store codes starting from row 5. Each code represents a store and we have a mapping document in the store map sheet which shows the store name for each store code. First, let's construct the code to return the store name for the store code given in cell C5, and we'll display the result in cell E5. Let's go to the VB editor, Alt F11. So this is our module for our basic examples. We will be referring to the worksheets using their worksheet code name. So the find method returns a range object. So let's declare a range object variable to hold our result. And let's assign it the result of our search operation. Since it's a range variable, we will use set. We are going to look in the store mapping sheet within column A, which has the store codes. The underscore is for moving our code onto a new line. Let's do that. Enter. And what are we looking for? We are looking for the store code store 009 from cell C5. Let's just hard code it in for now. And let's output the value in cell E5. Now a match in column A for store code 009 will return back the cell with the store code 009. But we want the value in the cell next to it, which is the store name. So we will use offset to move one column to the right within the same row. So let's call the offset. It takes the row and the column parameter. We want to stay in the same row, so 0. And we want to move one column to the right, so 1. If we wanted to move one column to the left, we would say 0, -1. We'll look at that scenario later on as well. Okay, let's run this code. And we have a store name in cell E5. But there is one complication with this method. If no match is found, this macro will throw an error. So let's try that. Let's put in a bogus store code and run the macro, and we get an error. The reason is that if no match is found, then the find range object variable will remain uninitialized and we can't treat it as a range object in this line out here. So we can play out this line of code only if a match is found. That is, only if the range is not nothing. So let's wrap this code inside our if statement. And we could even add an else condition when there is no match. Let's play this out. And we get no found in our cell. Next, let's look at the same code but in a for loop. So this time we are going to loop over column C, and for each store code, we will grab the matching store name. It's the same code as the previous section, but this time in a for loop. Let's declare a variable to hold the value that we're looking up from column C, and a range variable and an iteration variable for the for loop. We will loop from row 5 to row 18. So grab the store code from column C and perform a search operation. This is the same as the previous section, but we are passing the string variable, which is the store code, and place the result in the current cell in column E. Let's run this code, and all the values have been populated correctly. And now we have a basic understanding of how to perform lookup operations using the find method. Next, we will begin our practical example where we'll explore different ways to use this find function, thereby unlocking its true potential. Welcome to the advanced section for using the find function. First up, we will look at how to identify a data range that is sandwiched between other lines of text. In this data set, we have a monthly statement of invoices from a supplier. The data set that we are interested in starts from row 5 and runs now till row 18. We want to identify this data range dynamically and copy it over to the report sheet within columns A and D. And notice we already have our headers in this sheet. But row 5 to 18 is just for this month. Next month, we may have more invoices, and there is no guarantee that our data set in that month will end at row 18. What remains constant here is that our data set will always start in the next line after the word date, and it will end before the word please. So basically all we have to do is search for the word date using the find function and return back the row number below that cell. And we can do the same for the word please and return the row number above it. But let's complicate this a bit further. There are two occurrences of the word please, and we want to only identify the last occurrence. We can do this by specifying the search direction parameter in the find function. For the word date, we will search from top to down using XL next, and for the word please, we will search from bottom to top using XL previous. Okay, enough talk, let's start coding. Go to VBA editor. Since this task is a part of a larger workflow, we will build a parent sub and called different child subs from it. So this is going to be our parent sub, and let's build a child sub to identify the data range. Declare variables to hold the starting and ending row of a data set. Our find range variable. Let's find the first row of our data set. We are looking in column A for the word date. And here's the trick. We are going to search from top of the column A through to the bottom. So we will start from cell A and let's specify that. And since this is top down, we will look in the next cell from cell A1. And we are searching for the full cell value because it's just date, which is one word on its own. Let's specify that as well. So we're looking to match the whole cell value. Great. Once a match is found, we will grab the current row of the matching cell and add 1 to it to get the starting row of our data range. So our start row is the found row plus 1. And we'll almost do the opposite of this for finding the last row. This time, we'll be looking for the word please in column A. And our starting point is still cell A1. I know, after out here sounds counterintuitive because we want to do a reverse search, otherwise we'll land up finding the wrong please in row 3. But after here just means the starting cell. What is important is the search direction, which is reverse or XL previous. And what comes before cell A1? Well, we basically go to the bottom of our sheet to cell 1 million plus, and from here we will keep looking up till we find the word please. So it will be a bottom-up search. And lastly, please is a part of the statement. So we need to search within the cell values, which is XL part. Okay, once we have our match, we can grab the row above it, which is the found row minus 1. Now we have our starting and ending row of our data range. Let's first clear the data from the report sheet minus the header row. And let's now copy this data set over to the report sheet. So using this technique to determine the range, we need to specify first the starting cell of the range and the last cell of that range. So the starting cell is in the starting row, column 1, and goes all the way down to the last row in column 4. Let's copy and paste it into the report sheet into cell A2. Okay, that's it for the child sub. Let's call it from our main sub. Let's play this out. Great, works well. Did you know that you could find the last used row of a data set using the find method? This comes in handy when looping over data sets. I have done a separate video on this topic alone, but since it's relevant to this example as well, let's look at it briefly. So now that we have our data in the report sheet, we want to, well, build a report from it. The report will consist of data that we'll look up later on. But for now, the prerequisite for looping over a dataset dynamically is to identify the last row number of the data. Let's come to our VB editor. Since I've already covered this topic once before, let's build a slight variation today. We will create a generic function which will return the last row number based on the worksheet name that we pass through as a parameter through a function. Let's come to a new module. Let's build a function. We will pass the actual worksheet name as a string, and the function will return a row number, which can be a long data type. Let's load this worksheet that we're passing to the function into a worksheet variable. Let's declare a variable to hold the last row. Now we are going to directly output the row of the matching range into a last row variable. So we cannot use the previous not nothing style of logic. We'll just skip any errors instead. First, let's think through our approach. We want to find the last row with data. So we can do a bottom-up or an Excel previous search for any non-empty cell. Notice we are using find as a method of the cells object. So we are looking for a non-empty cell which can be identified using a wildcard. This indicates a cell with any value. And we'll code in the Excel previous logic that we had seen in the earlier section. And we'll look within the cell value as well and reset the error handler and assign the row number to the function. Let's call this function from our main sub, and let's do a message box just to play it out. We get row 15, which looks correct. Okay, moving on. Now that we have our raw data and we know the last row, we can go ahead and build out a report which consists of different lookups. In fact, we will do 3 lookups. But I don't feel like writing out the same looking code 3 times and just tweaking a few values. Let's instead build one generic function that we can use to perform each of these 3 lookups. So in column E, we will grab the store name for the store code from column C based on the mapping table in the store map. And we will use the same table to return the region back into column F. And we will grab the salesperson based on the region from the region map sheet. And as I said previously, we will build one function to tackle all 3 problems. Let's go to the VB editor. Firstly, we need to initiate a for loop and we'll perform the lookups within each iteration of that loop. Let's declare some variables. We'll address these when we use them in our code. The for loop will go from the second row to the last row, which we have already determined out here. Let's build out a separate function to do the lookups now. Let's feed in the parameters for the function. First, we need to know the sheet that we need to perform our lookup over. Then we need to know the index number of the column that we will search for our values in. And we need to know what value we're looking for. And once we have that value, we need to know how many columns to offset and grab the corresponding value like the store name, region, etc. And the value returned by the function could be a string or a number, so we will leave it as a variant. Now let's declare a worksheet variable and assign it to the sheet name that we are passing through our function. Let's build out our search range variable. And which column are we looking in? We are looking in the column index provided in the function parameter. And we're looking for the search value from the function parameter as well. If no match is found, we will return a blank value. And if the matching cell is found, we will grab the next value that is offset by the number that is provided in the function parameter. So the returned value can come from any column, left or right of the matched value, as long as it is in the same row. And that's it. Let's return to the main code. We are going to do 3 lookups. For the first lookup, we will grab the store code from column C and find the associated store name. Let's call our function. Time to fill in our parameters. We are looking in the store map sheet. In column 1, we are searching for the store code and we want to grab the store name, which is 1 column to the right. So offset by 1. Great. Let's run this macro just to see if our generic function is working. Come to the report sheet and we can see our store names in column E. Fantastic. Let's follow the same logic for the remaining 2 lookups. This time we want to grab the region name, which is 2 columns to the right, that is offset 2. Now our next lookup is based of the region value from column F. So let's feed this value into a variable for easy reading. There is one interesting thing about this lookup. The salesperson name that we want is to the left of the region. Traditional VLOOKUPs are from left to right. So will this be a problem? Heck no. Our function is generic enough to handle the situation. All we need to do is provide the offset value as -1. Let's do that. So all the logic is same, but we are offsetting by -1. And that's it. Let's run the code. Everything seems to be working. Next, we are going to search for text within text. With find function, we are not restricted to searching for full cell values. We can search within the cell value or text as well. We already saw this functionality when we are searching for the word please in the bottom row. But in this section, let's look at a different variation. Let's look at column B now. These are docket numbers. I've been calling these dockets invoices till now, but they are not all invoices. Some of them are rebates and some are invoices. Rebates are when we are owed money and invoices are when we owe money. So if we see the string I and V in the docket number, it's an invoice. And if we see REB, it's a rebate. And accordingly, we'll populate the words invoice or rebate in column H. And in column I, we will populate the amount due, which is the same as column D if it's an invoice, and -1 times column D if it's a rebate. Let's code this in. So we are still in the main loop. Grab the amount from column D and assign the current cell in column B to a range variable. We'll build out a separate function to check out whether the docket number in the current cell represents an invoice. If it's an invoice, we will return true. Otherwise, we'll return a false. Let's build that function. This function will take the actual cell range and not just the cell value as a parameter. Build our search logic. Now we can do this in two ways. We can search for the string I and V within part of the cell, or we can do a wildcard search with the string I and V and match the entire cell contents. Both produce the same result. We can choose either. If a match is found, we will return a true or else a false. Back to our main code. Let's just make some space here. If we return a true, that is if the string I and V exists in the docket number, then we will populate the word invoice in column H and copy the amount over to column I as is. Or else, we will populate the word rebate and switch the sign on the amount. Let's run this code. Looks to be working well. Let's move on to the final example. We will search for multiple occurrences of our lookup value. Yes, there is more. This is a gift that won't stop giving. In our final scenario, we will look at how to filter this report that we have created based on a salesperson name. We will achieve this by searching for multiple occurrences of the salesperson in the report worksheet. So in this report data set, for a certain salesperson that we specify, we will copy the row of data associated with the multiple occurrence of that salesperson and paste it into this filter worksheet. Before we begin coding, let's cover some fundamentals quickly. The find method returns the first matching cell for a lookup value. So if the salesperson name repeats in column G, the find method will only return the first match it finds. If we want to find the next matching cell, we need to call the find next method. Okay, let's begin coding. We'll build a brand new sub for this. We'll put the name of the salesperson at the top as a public constant. Let's clear out the data in the filter worksheet. Declare some variables. We'll be pasting rows one below the other. So let's find the next available row to paste data into. At the very start, this will be the row 2. But let's determine this programmatically. We have a last row function to find the last used row. And let's just add 1 to it. Let's find the first occurrence of our salesperson in column G. And if a match is found in the first instance, we will copy the data row from the report sheet to the filter worksheet. And now starts the part for the multiple occurrences. Let's first feed the address of our first match cell into a string variable. We will be using this later on. To find multiple matches, we will use the find next method. Find next simply continues the search that was initiated in the find method that we had called earlier. All we need to do is specify which cell we want to continue our search from. Back to our code. The cell that we want to continue our search from is simply our previous match cell, which is find range. So let's code it out. So we'll call the find next method of the columns object and pass in the find range as the starting or after parameter. but this will just return the next match cell. To find all the match cells, we need to do a loop. We need to specify a condition that will make the loop continue on. That is, continue searching for the next match. Okay, let's come to a worksheet and search for the salesperson Jayesh. Control F, press find next. We get the next matching result. Let's press find next again. The selection will return to the first match and keep searching in a circle. Back to our code. So we will keep searching as long as the matched cell doesn't equal the location of our first match cell. And when it does equal the first match cell, it means we have completed one search cycle and we can exit the loop. So let's do that. Okay, so we have found the next match cell. Let's find the next available row in our filter worksheet. So we'll use the same logic as up here. And now that we have a new match cell and the next available row in the filter worksheet, let's just paste over the data using the same logic as we did up here. Okay, that's it. Let's run this code, check the result out. This doesn't look right. Something is wrong here. We were just expecting the results related to the salesperson Jack. And what's this header row doing out here? Okay, I'm not going to kid you guys around. I know what the issue is already. We can't use this last row function after calling the find next method. So let's comment this out. We will use this logic instead. We already know the first last row, which was 2. And for each iteration or each match found, we'll just keep adding 1. So let's run this code now. So our code works fine now. But what went wrong there for a sec? There is actually a bit of caution that we need to follow when using the find function. I'll explain it briefly in the last section. Let's come back to this line of code. When I was building out this code for this video, I actually did use this line of code and did get the error that we saw earlier. And I kid you not, I literally spent an hour trying to figure it out and couldn't find an answer. So I took a break and then it struck me. The find function has an inherent issue that we need to be aware of. The find function that we call from VBA is basically the same Excel function, which is Control F. And remember these large list of parameters? We have these same options in the UI as well. Each time we use the find function in the UI or through VBA, the parameters of a find operation are saved and applied in our next search as well. So if we tick mark match entire cell contents, which is basically looking for whole values, the next time the find function will choose whole values as the default. That is not unless we override by specifying the parameters again. And this is the recommended approach. Specify the full list of parameters each time you use the find function. That's not always practical though. So I leave that choice to you, but that's something to be aware of. So why wasn't this code working? Let's look at what's happening here. The find next method uses the parameter setting of the find method that we specified up here. And in it, we are searching for a specific value. But when we call our last row function, here we have specified the search value as wildcard or rather anything. So this was overriding the search value of the find next method. So in the next iteration of this do while loop, instead of searching for the same salesperson, the find next method started looking for any value and landed up grabbing all the salespersons. And for this particular case, I can't think of a way around it. So I'm just going with lrow plus 1. At least we know the issue. But don't let that deter you from using the find method because the benefits greatly outweigh any drawbacks. And that was the video. It turned out a bit longer than I expected, but I do feel that we were able to flesh out some good meaty scenarios. Anyways, that's it from me. I will see you in the next video.